2024 is old news. It's time to start looking forward to 2025, and luckily we already know about a ton of great looking new VR games scheduled for the next 12 months. First up, we have the gorgeous looking Aces of Thunder, a combat focused flight sim set during World War II that lets players hop into authentically recreated aircraft from that time period. Now, I know a lot of VR users were really hoping this one would launch in 2024, but if I'm honest, that's just us being greedy. We had an absolutely jam-packed 12 months, and the back end of 2024 was even more ridiculous than the rest of the year, so it's great that this one's launching early 2025. It will have more time to breathe and more time to shine with less competition. Next up, we have The Midnight Walk. Now, I cannot wait to get my hands on this game. The art style alone has me incredibly excited. Now, this is, I think, a third-person platform horror adventure that's been built with a claymation art style. It looks mind-blowingly cool. Now, I could be wrong about the third-person part. I think the game does have third-person portions, but the trailer also seems to indicate first-person portions if you're playing in VR. So I don't know if VR has a completely different perspective from those who will choose to play flat screen, but what I do know is this looks like Wallace and Gromit on acid, or an even darker and much more twisted version of something like Coraline or Nightmare Before Christmas, and that just has me incredibly excited. It's also from the same developers who made Lost in Random, a flat screen game that I would highly recommend everyone check out. Pools VR is up next, and this is a game that you can actually check out in VR right now if you have a PCVR setup. There is a free demo available on Steam, but the full game is coming to PSVR2 and PC in 2025. This is a liminal space walking simulator horror game. Now, I still don't think there are any actual creatures that will chase you around and try to kill you in this game, but that doesn't mean it isn't terrifying. Pools plays with your expectations, it pumps in plenty of unsettling noises, and it just places you into incredibly unsettling liminal environments. This game, very cool, unlike anything else out there, and launching in 2025. Up next, we have a AAA VR adventure that just missed the 2024 release window. This one was delayed really late into 2024, and it's now being released mid to early 2025, and I'm grateful for that delay. I think delaying a game is always the right choice. It means you release a polished product, and ultimately that first impression is really important. Wanderer Fragments of Fate is actually a remake of the extremely well-received VR action-adventure time-hopping puzzle game Wanderer, which released in 2022. So if that first game was so well received, then why are they remaking it, I hear you ask? Well, this is a full top-to-bottom remake to create the definitive version of this fantastic adventure game. It has stunning new visuals, full body rigs for each of the characters you inhabit during the game, new puzzles, new areas, and more in-depth and more polished VR gameplay and mechanics. I truly believe this is the version of Wanderer that the devs set out to make originally, but maybe they just didn't have the resources or know how to pull it off. They clearly have that now, and they are bringing something very special to PCVR, Quest, and PSVR2 owners in 2025. Slender The Arrival is a 2013, yes, that's right, 12 years ago, first-person horror adventure that attempted to flesh out the lore of the viral sensation Slender Man, and it tried to give players much more to do than the original viral hit gave players to do. Effectively, in that first game, you're just walking around the woods looking for crayon drawings and trying to avoid the titular lanky man in a suit. By comparison, Slender The Arrival is a much more conventional, traditional first-person horror game with dozens of spooky environments to make your way through, tons of puzzles to solve, different creatures that will chase you throughout these environments, and loads of jump scares. A full VR version is being published by Perp Games and should be available in 2025 after being delayed out of 2024. Lots of delays on this list, but then, as I said, that's a much better thing than releasing a broken game. And just like that, we're straight onto another VR game that was delayed out of 2024 and into 2025. Now look, I played Zombie Army VR at Gamescom and I wasn't particularly enamored with it. Some of the VR mechanics felt extremely wonky, I really struggled to reload some of the guns, the inventory system is incredibly non-immersive, and my entire demo was given to me without a pair of headphones, so I couldn't appreciate the game's sound or audio design. However, all that being said, I did still have fun whilst I was playing it. Shooting these hordes of zombies, popping heads left, right and centre feels authentically Zombie Army, and the developers actually took on board the feedback that myself and many others gave from Gamescom and decided to delay the game, so I am still positive that this could be a great experience, especially in co-op. Shooting zombies is always fun in VR, and it did feel good here. There's just some rough edges that really need to be smoothed out before release. Steel Wool Studios seem to be pretty dedicated to VR, and they're proving that once again by bringing yet another Five Nights at Freddy's game to VR in 2025. This is Five Nights at Freddy's Secret of the Mimic. Now that title and this teaser trailer are all we know right now, so I can't say anything else, but strap in because another Five Nights at Freddy's VR experience is coming soon. Now this is the first game on this list where I'm really not sure if it will release in 2025, but I do hope that it does because this trailer looks absolutely fantastic. This is Affected the Asylum, the sequel to Affected the Manor. Now Affected the Manor is actually one of the very first VR games I ever recorded myself playing and decided to put online, and it started a 5+ year long obsession with filming myself playing VR games and putting them online. Now if you haven't played Affected the Manor, I would urge you to do so. It's a very simple horror game. It's one of those horror games in VR where you can put your friends and family into it at Christmas or an event and anyone can play it. It doesn't rely on any VR mechanics really, you simply walk through a manor and allow the game to hit you with jump scare after jump scare. It's one of those kinds of VR games, but I do have a massive soft spot for it. Now Affected the Asylum is a complete upgrade. This is a proper story-driven adventure game with puzzle mechanics, interactive environments, and co-op. So this is a much more ambitious experience for the developers, and it even includes a really horrible looking, lanky, monstrous nurse woman that I just do not want to see in VR. I love the look of this, but this trailer was released 2 years ago, and as far as I know, devs have gone radio silent. I hope it's next year, but I really don't know. Almost everything on this list has been a really dark, twisted, horrible horror game or a war game so far. So let's break that up with a little bit of colour and something a little bit more jovial, a little bit more light. This is All on Board, and it's aiming to be a platform that allows players all over the world to connect and play officially licensed board games together in VR. I tested this out at Gamescom as well, and I was really impressed with it. I'm a big fan of board games. I play a lot of Escape Dark Castle, I play Binding of Isaac 4 Souls, and both of those games have perfectly recreated versions here in this game that you can play with anyone all over the world. I love the concept. I think board games bring us all together, but it's often hard to get people together in one place, so playing them in VR is just genius. I hope this gets loads of updates and tons of different board games. Another colourful game up next. This is Robo Quest VR, a gorgeous looking cel shaded first person shooter roguelite adventure game. Now this is actually a VR port of an existing and incredibly popular flat screen game. I haven't played the flat screen game. I think I'll wait for the VR version to come out, and this is being developed by Flat to VR Studios. This is their second game after Trombone Champ. Really excited for this. It looks very Borderlands-esque, and you know me, I love a roguelite. This next game has been on my VR games coming out next year list for the last 2, 3, or maybe even 4 years. This is Into the Darkness, and it's been on my Steam wishlist for absolutely ages. This is a Half-Life Alyx, Boneworks, Bone Lab-esque physics-driven action adventure game where you're taking down robots and literally ripping them limb from limb. I'm really hopeful that this will actually release in 2025. Development has continued over the years. It's not one of those games where it's gone completely silent and we don't know if it's even being worked on anymore. Just recently, they opened up a brand new playtest on Steam, which I think you can still take part in, which gives you access to an arena mode where you can just take down robots and enjoy the physicality of the entire game. It's shaping up really nicely. I just hope we'll finally see it in 2025. Okay, I'm not even going to try to explain what this game is, because I still don't fully understand, but I have just been given access by the developers, which is really exciting, so soon I will know exactly how this game plays and exactly what kind of genre it falls into. This is Aran Age, and the one thing I do know about this game is you play as a dinosaur lizard creature, and you're fighting tons of humanoid tree robot creatures in a gorgeous looking fantasy world. This game again has physics driven combat. There's lots of climbing, there's lots of parrying, there's magic abilities, there's swimming, which is done physically by moving your hands back and forward. It looks stunning. It's releasing for PC and PSVR2, but I don't fully know what kind of game it is. Originally, I speculated that this might be another roguelite based on the way that the environments looked in the trailer. It looked very arena combat focused. There's some gorgeous looking boss fights in it as well, but the most recent trailer seems to imply it's much more story driven than I expected it to be. There are NPCs to interact with, there are puzzles to solve. This might be a full-fledged single player VR adventure rather than a roguelike experience, but I won't know until I've jumped in. Aran Age looking very promising, but very confusing. I don't fully understand it. Out of all the delayed games on this list, this is the one I was happiest to see get delayed, because IOI need to absolutely nail this. This is the 4th attempt at Hitman 3 in VR, and it is the most promising looking attempt so far. This is Hitman World of Assassination for PSVR2. It has proper VR interactions, it has manual reloading, environments that actually respond and react to what you're doing. It could be the VR Hitman game we have been crying out for years. So yes, delay it. Delay it as many times as you need. Just please, please, please get it right this time, because I don't think the VR community will trust a VR Hitman experience again if this one doesn't get it right, because there has been so many attempts now and they've all been varying degrees of terrible. I've still had fun with them, but they're terrible. This game right here probably has the best story of all the games on this list, and it's one of the upcoming VR games that I'm most excited to play. This is the standalone version of Gunman Contracts. Now, if you've never played Gunman Contracts, it is a mod built within Half-Life Alyx by an exceptionally talented modder who set out to create a John Wick-esque first-person shooter experience for VR, and they absolutely succeeded in doing that. The Half-Life Alyx mods Gunman Contracts 1 and Gunman Contracts 2 aren't just the best Half-Life Alyx mods I've ever played, they're also up there with some of the best VR experiences I've ever played. They're incredibly replayable, shooting enemies feels so good, the vibes are immaculate. It's basically like playing a first-person version of Hotline Miami in VR, built within Half-Life Alyx. And that is just so incredibly cool to me. Now, thankfully, the developer set out to make a full standalone version outside of Half-Life Alyx, and that's exactly what you're seeing here. The developer now has the funding to go and turn this into a reality, and I cannot wait to go hands-on with it. This is the kind of first-person shooter I've been crying out for in VR, and I think it's why I enjoy the Half-Life Alyx mods so much. This particular section you're also seeing here is very much a homage to the most recent John Wick film, where John is climbing the stairs in Paris and he gets to the top and then falls all the way back down. So it's clear that the developer is also very inspired by those films. It feels like John Wick, and that's a very purposeful choice. Can't wait to play this. Gunman Contracts standalone, coming out in 2025, hopefully, if the developer is done by then. Fingers crossed. Alien Rogue Incursion released just last week for PSVR2 and PCVR users, and with it came the bombshell announcement that it is just part 1 of a 2-part story and series. So if we're lucky, we might just get more VR Alien goodness in 2025. Now, personally, I hope that developers Survios take the time required to ensure Part 2 is an absolute slam dunk, because Part 1 is a solid foundation, but it falls into a few issues, particularly in the latter half of the game. There are one too many bugs and glitches that actually halted my progression and meant I needed to start the game again, and the xenomorphs themselves are so fun to shoot at for the first 2 hours, and then they kind of become more of a nuisance than an actual threat. Figuring out how to keep these xenomorphs terrifying for the entire duration of a game is a really tricky thing to do, and I do think Survios have the ability, they just need to give it a little more thought for Part 2. Either way, if we don't get Part 2 in 2025, Quest users will be getting Part 1 in February. And lastly, not strictly a new VR game, but instead a brand new DLC for an existing VR game. This is Vertigo 2 Into the Ether, a story expansion to one of the best PCVR and PSVR2 games on the market right now, that has players taking on the role of a fan favourite character, Brian, as you explore a mysterious new universe filled with creatures to mulch and a new grappling mechanic to enjoy. Vertigo 2 is one of VR's best and brightest experiences. It's a Half-Life feeling game that even coined the term Half-like to describe itself, and the powerhouse solo developer behind the series even worked for Valve before starting his own studio. If you haven't played Vertigo 2, honestly, what the hell are you doing? Go and buy it now, play it over Christmas, and prepare yourself for Into the Ether releasing in 2025. That's everything for now. There are surely tons of surprises up 2025's sleeve. I would expect at least a couple of meta exclusives and some PSVR2 surprises throughout the year, and countless other games we don't even know about yet. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, leave a comment, hit subscribe, and I'll see you all in 2025. Have a wonderful holiday season.